Aren't you tired of playing the same champions over and over again? Did you face the Ariyasu matchup for the millionth time? Well, if it's the case, you come to the right place, because today I'll be presenting 4 off-meta midlaners who might actually be broken. Quick preface before we jump in, there are 2 criteria for every pick in this video. First, it's not some random Chinese TikTok deck. Every champion I'm showcasing has at least one Master Plus player who actually mains it, so you know it works even in high elo. Secondly, these picks are all extremely unconventional. I'm not talking about something like full AP Malphite mid, Morgana mid. I'm talking about champions that will give your teammates heart attacks the moment you hover them. So let's jump straight into it. Our first pick is Rakan mid featuring Speed. I won't be showing his league profile because, let's say, his in-game tag isn't very family friendly. And to the surprise of no one, the guy got banned 3 days ago. We're talking about the 800 LP Master Rakan mid one trick who's been terrorizing the US server. And the craziest part, he's not even playing a normal build. He goes full AP Glass Cannon Rakan and somehow it works. At first glance his laning looks atrocious, but it's actually not that bad. His trading pattern is very simple, yet so effective. He W's in, Q auto, which deals good damage thanks to electrocute, and he gets healed along the way. Okay, but that's far from enough in modern League of Legends. Let's not forget that he has a useless spell, low early damage, low early wave clear, and good luck if you miss your Qs or Ws in lane. He still struggles in most early matchups, but that's not why you play Rakan mid. Yes, once you finish Malignance you become amazing in skirmishes and you can constantly set up plays with your jungler. But there's another reason to pick him. I might sound crazy saying this, but full AP Rakan is actually a scaling monster. And that scaling comes from places you wouldn't expect. Nobody builds AP on Rakan anymore, so people forgot how ridiculous some of his numbers are. His passive has a 95% AP scaling, which means that in late game, you're casually walking around with the 800 HP shield. Oh yeah, and the cooldown scales down with levels and when you hit people, so every spell rotation, he gets it back again. And if you somehow still manage to get burst through all of that, well, you just hit him with a Q, which the heal also scales with AP, and boom, he's back to full HP. And all this while building full damage. He's every squishy champion's nightmare, because you can't burst him, but he can absolutely one-shot you. And when you also take into account the mobility of the champ, you realize why Speed's Rakan is such a menace in the late game. He jumps in, deletes your backline, jumps out, and somehow he's impossible to kill. Speed has 2 different versions of his build. Normally he rushes Malignance first, followed by Storm Surge, Zonia, Rabadon, or your classic mage AP items. But lately Speed started going Hextech Gunblade first. Yeah, I know it sounds completely troll, but trust me, there's an idea behind it. Firstly, he gets to spike way earlier thanks to Hextech Alternator, and the active slow helps him hit his combo more consistently. Yes, the 40 AD feel kind of wasted, but I guess it helps with the wave clear, and you still need to auto attack from time to time to proc electrocute or to gain your passive shield back. And there you have it, Gunblade Rakan mid, to try at your own risk though. Next up we have AP Yorick mid. Yeah, I know. How the hell does that even work? Out of his 4 abilities, only his E actually scales with AP. On paper this build makes absolutely no sense. And yet this Korean one trick managed to hit Grandmaster last season playing this cursed version of Yorick. So what's the idea? Well, unlike Yorick top who usually wants to walk up, trade with his Q, this version plays completely different. He commits to a slow war of attrition. Instead of stepping up, he just pokes from range with his E and his goals. Early on the damage isn't impressive. The moment he starts putting extra points into E and building towards Blackfire Torch, things start to change. Now his E is stacking damage from everywhere. The base damage, Arcane Comet, Scorch, and the burn from Fated Ashes. And here's the funny part, Yorick goals also apply spell effects. So when they jump on someone, they're spreading the Blackfire Torch burn as well. And suddenly that harmless poke starts adding up. And because this is mid lane, he's often facing mages with very low attack speed, which means when he drops his cage, it takes them forever to break it. So the combo becomes pretty disgusting. Hit E, trap them in the cage, send the goals, and just watch them burn. And doesn't even matter that only his E does magic damage. because by the time it's maxed out, and with how much ability haste his build gives, the cooldown drops to around 5 seconds. So the entire playstyle becomes a constant cycle of slow, frustrating poke. And to make his playstyle even more toxic, or Yorick OTP builds Cosmic Drive second. And maybe this doesn't sound devious, but this item has a really fun interaction with Yorick. The Ghouls and even the Maiden gain Yorick's flat movement speed bonuses. So once he gets Cosmic Drive, his army starts sprinting at people. At that point, escaping becomes almost impossible. Between the cage, the ghouls chasing you down at ridiculous speed, and the constant burns ticking away, all you can really do is watch as you face a slow and agonizing death. One thing to keep in mind if you want to try Yorick mid yourself, unlike the usual bruiser version, this build makes you very squishy. You can get one shot very easily, so you can't play like a frontline juggernaut. Instead, you almost have to think yourself as a backline necromancer, staying at range while your ghouls and maiden do the work. The interesting part is that this Korean OTP has actually been adapting his build in Season 16 to give himself more options. He often swaps Cosmic Drive for Banal Pipes, going for a slightly tankier setup. Other games he'll build Liandry second, and occasionally he even throws in a Black Cleaver. At this point, I'm not gonna lie, tracking his builds gives me headaches. But if you want to see the pick in action, check out his YouTube channel. He regularly posts condensed Yorick mid gameplay, link in the description. Next up, let me introduce you to Hwang Tiandi. He's a 600 LP Belveth one trick on the Korean server. So far, nothing crazy. Plenty of high elo players playing Belveth jungle. But one day Hwang noticed something interesting. Whenever he got out of L mid, he would just lock in Belveth anyway. And somehow, he was stomping games. At first it was just a backup pick, but the results were so good that eventually he started queuing Belveth mid on purpose. Now you might think the success comes from just playing Belveth mid, but it's not as simple as that. Most Belveth players follow the standard build, rushing Kraken Slayer, then going to things like Stridebreaker, Witsand, or Death Dance for a mix of damage and survivability. Hwang does none of that. Instead, he goes full critical hit Belveth, which sounds completely insane. You're playing mid lane against long range artillery mages, burst assassins, a lane where survivability should matter more than anything, and his solution? Build even more damage. No defensive items, zero safety, just raw crit, and somehow he makes it work. In fact, it works a bit too well because I've rarely seen a pick that can 1v9 games this hard. So let's break down how exactly he makes this work. Compared to other picks on this list, Belveth mid does pretty well in the laning phase. Sure, farming to range champions will always be rough, but she has every tool to fight back. What Hwang loves to do is start Q at level 1. It's perfect for dodging scale shots, and he uses his dashes aggressively on the wave to hit level 2 first. The moment he does, he looks for a quick trade, dash in, land W, get some damage in, then dash out. But the real fun starts around level 5, once he picks his first component, Tiamat. And here's where his setup gets interesting. In lane, Hwang plays fully around his E's, which gives him a huge amount of damage reduction during fights. And suddenly, his trading pattern becomes disgusting to deal with. Dash in, land the knockup, then press E while tanking everything they throw at you, all while dealing great damage. Then you simply disengage. And if this already sounds unfair, here is another twist, because when Belveth uses E with Tiamat, she basically one-shots the entire wave. So every time Hwang goes in, he's not just winning the trade, he's also instantly nuking the wave. Which means the enemy midlaner is stuck dealing with the wave, while Belveth walks in away with perma prio, winning trades, despite being a melee champion. And that's where the real snowball begins, because with constant mid prio, Hwang gets so many opportunities to move around the map. Invade the enemy jungler, steal camps, roam top lane, dive bot. Belveth suddenly has full control over the tempo of the game. And the trading pattern we talked about gets even more disgusting once she gets her Ravenous Hydra. Before he was already mitigating most of the damage with E, now he's also healing everything back up. By this point in the game, Hwang has usually roamed across the map, picking up kills left and right, and is starting building crit. His usual build path is Ravenous Hydra, Navori so he can have his E always up and even more unkillable despite going full damage. Then he follows with classic crit items like Mortal Reminder, Collector, Shield Bow. On rare occasions he even likes to toss an Infinity Edge into the mix. To understand this pick, we need to go back a few years. It's Season 12, you're queuing mid on E West, and you face a Singed one-trick named Soria. You're thinking, free lane, no range, weak early, this should be easy. Then the game starts, and your jungler is already dead. Soria shows up with Boot First and Predator, sprints across the map at Mach 10, flips her jungler, First Blood. And that's when you realize, you're not playing a normal lane. Because Singed doesn't lane. He doesn't farm, he doesn't trade, he just leaves. At first it feels amazing. You're up in CS, up in EXP, taking plates, but while you're winning lane, your entire team is collapsing. Singed is perma-roaming. Every fight turns to a number disadvantage. And his ganks are basically unavoidable. It's a super fast champion with a point-and-click flip. You can't outrun him, you can't outplay him. So yeah, in mid lane, technically you're ahead, but it doesn't matter, because the Singed goes down 3 levels and half your CS ends up stomping the game. And Soria was getting insane results with this strategy. At first, nobody noticed, but once people caught on, Singed mid started spreading, and his win rate skyrocketed. But that's also when the controversy started. Some people saw it as genius, a completely new way to play mid lane. Others saw it as one of the most uninteractive and frustrating playstyle the game had ever seen. But one thing was clear, Predator Singed was way too OP. So Riot had to do something. They nerfed it, and when that wasn't enough, they removed Predator entirely from the game. Without it, Singed lost everything. His roams went from unstoppable to slow and predictable. And just like that, the pick died. Most high elo players were honestly happy to see it go. But now 3 years later, a player named High in the Sky proved something crazy. Even without Predator, he hit Challenger playing Singed mid only. Not just reviving the pick, but showing he might be stronger than ever. So how does he make it work without his main roaming tool? Well, even though Predator is gone, Season 16 gives Singed something huge. Home guards. It might not sound like much, but for Singed mid, it changes everything. Back then, Singed had to roam because he simply couldn't lane. He'd take too much damage, get forced to base, and lose entire waves. Now, you get back to lane way faster, which unlocks a simple but very effective trick. Farm 2 waves, then reset. The third wave is always a cannon wave, so the enemy can't crush it fast enough, and you come back to lane just in time over and over again. It sounds simple, but it completely fixes one of Singed's biggest weaknesses. Now to be fair, it's still not easy. Singed's early game is so bad that even farming those 2 first waves can feel like a survival mission. To pull off the laning phase, you really need to know your limits, and High in the Sky is constantly one mistake away from dying. But if you get through it, it's all worth it. Because as you might have guessed, you're not playing Singed for the lane. You're playing for your 2-item spike, Rylai's into Protoplasm Harness. And at that point, you turn to a completely different champion. You're insanely hard to kill thanks to the Lifeline passive. You can't be locked down because of all the tenacity you're stacking. With Mercury Treads, the Protoplast passive, and Shard Runes, you reach around 55% tenacity. And while you're this tanky, so hard to catch, you're also crippling the entire team with Rylai's slow. The worst part, they can't even ignore Singed, because under ultimate, he still deals a lot of damage. And once he adds Liandry to the mix, he becomes both a utility monster and a carry threat. And the longer the game goes, the worse it gets for the enemies. Because Singed is one of the most underrated late game champions in the game. Sure, picks like Smolder or Kale might have more raw damage. They can still get caught off guard and get one-shotted instantly. Singed doesn't have that problem. He brings the perfect mix of damage and survivability that makes him so reliable in late game fights. You might be wondering, Singed is initially a top laner. Why not just play this in top lane? Well, because Singed gets destroyed by every meta top laner. And sure, he also loses most 1v1s in mid. But the lane itself is completely different by nature. Top lane is long, which gives enemies way more room to run you down. Mid lane is short, you're always close to your tower. Yes, you'll take poke, but it's easier to survive. And because getting back to lane is faster, this whole reset every 2 wave strategy becomes way more reliable. And this argument can also be applied to the other picks of this video like Rakan, Yorick, or even Belveth. So that was 4 off-meta midlaners that might actually be OP. Sure, some are easier to pick up than others, but whether you just want to mess around normals or add a bit of spice to ranked games, I hope this gives you something new to try, or at least some ideas to steal. If you end up trying any of those picks, let me know in the comments how your games went. And if you enjoyed this kind of series, tell me if you'd like to see a part 2 or maybe a similar video for another role, because there are still a lot more off-meta picks I didn't have time to cover. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you in the next one.